The Italian Wine Podcast is the community-driven platform for Italian wine geeks around the world. Support the show by donating at ItalianWinepodcast.com. Donate €5 or more and we'll send you a copy of our latest book, My Italian Grape Geek Journal, absolutely free. To get your free copy of My Italian Grape Geek Journal, click Support Us at ItalianWinepodcast.com or wherever you get your pods. Grazie mille. Welcome to the Italian Grape Geek podcast. Join us as we explore personal stories of travel and tasting with Italy's must-know grape varietals. Chart your own course with My Italian Grape Geek Journal, your personal tasting companion to accompany the series. Available now on Amazon. With thanks to Colangelo and Partners for their generous support with this project.
Hello, I'm Ciro, and I'm back for the third installment. And this time around, I will be talking, and I did some research about specifically Incrocio Bruni, probably not the most common of Italian varietals. Incrocio Bruni is definitely a fascinating variety, to say the least. To be more correct, it is a crossing. It's a crossing that is found mainly in central Italy, and specifically the regions of Marche, Emilia-Romagna, Toscana, and Umbria, although Marche is probably the most important overall region where we find Incrocio Bruni 54. As a variety and as a crossing, more specifically, definitely considered to be one of the most successful and high-quality crossings that ever been done in Italy. The name references to the 54th attempt, hence the name Incrocio Bruni 54, and specifically came to be or born in 1936 by the hands of a very famous ampelographer of the time by the name Bruno Bruni. And he basically crossed two major varieties, such as Verdicchio and Sauvignon Blanc. Overall, Incrocio Bruni 54 production or plantings as well, if you will, are quite low. It's mostly used in blends more than monovarietal wines. It's a variety that basically is found only in small production, as a quite compact medium bunch with fairly large rounded berries, so very pleasant to the eye as well. In the glass, when you look at a glass of Incrocio Bruni 54, is this bit of a greenish hue, maybe originating a little bit from Verdicchio, but also from Sauvignon Blanc specifically being the parents. And it's definitely a very nice refreshing acidity, but at the same time a rich mouthfeel. So there's a little bit of the yin-yang coming from both the parent varietals, if you will. And the aromas, generally speaking, tend to be more of a, green melon, figs, herbal qualities. Definitely very, very fascinating. And most of the wines, they tend to be dry, still wines that are produced with the Incrocio Bruni 54. And at the same time, most of the wines are, vinified in stainless steel and then just bottled and freshly released in the market. As far as my direct connection to Incrocio Bruni 54 is really connected to when I was still living in Italy. Actually, the last summer I lived in Italy in 1999. I worked in Marche, specifically in Gabice Mare, the northernmost province of Marche, for summertime. And that was the first time locally in the hotel I worked at, I heard talking to the maitre d' in the dining room about such wines made with the Incrocio Bruni 54, or at least a percentage of it. Then it really went dormant as far as my experience. And then, obviously I rediscovered it later on as I got more and more involved with the Italian wines, and specifically here in the United States. Only had the chance to, honestly, personally, as far as the experience of Incrocio Bruni 54 and tasting the wines, I only had the opportunity to taste such wines with Incrocio Bruni 54 being one of the blending partners. Never really had monovarietal Incrocio Bruni 54, just because then there isn't much available at all. I think the opportunity that I had was because there was a trade show organized by Gambero Rosso here in Boston a few years back, and there was such wines. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was quite an interesting wine, although again a blend, and I liked that obviously it was the story behind it. I really love the fact that it goes to show that sometimes out of two great varietals, you can get a wonderful crossing that can make important wines, quality wines that can also almost bypass, qualitatively speaking, the parents. But in spite of that, today there isn't much in the market yet. As far as here in Boston, I have to say in the market, I've never seen a wine that it's individually labeled as Incrocio Bruni 54. I hope there will be some. I hope more people will, just like myself, first and foremost, will discover the quality potentially of wines made with such crossing. but as far as I can tell right now, I haven't seen any. When it comes to Incrocio Bruni 54 and where is most importantly planted, obviously there are the main DOP is definitely the Colli Maceratesi, obviously in the province of Macerata in the Marche, and also then it's used in some of the more generic appellations of Tuscany, like the Costa Toscana AGT, which basically straddle the coastline of Tuscany. When it comes to benchmark producer, the only one that comes to mind that I've done some research and so it's called the Terra Cruda. But other than that, not much to talk about just because obviously there isn't much to start with. So I think because of the main characteristics, both aromatically speaking and flavor profile of Incrocio Bruni 54, I would think that it can be, a terrific food pairing, as many Italian wines can be. And I think most importantly, probably with the vegetable preparations. When I say that, these preparations can vary from simply grilled zucchini, eggplant, and preparations as such with a little bit of a good extra virgin olive oil and maybe some fresh mint, but also because where I live, I see a lot of tempura type of preparation of fried vegetables. And I think the element of freshness, but also structure the Incrocio Bruni 54 has, it can be also quite cleansing with something, the fried element to it. But lastly, at the end of the day, also a spring pea risotto or fresh pasta with the peas, especially in the right time of the year. It can be, I think, a great accompaniment with such a unique variety. And my hope is that we all get more opportunity to taste them and discover Incrocio Bruni 54.
Coming back to America, Vinitaly International Academy, the ultimate Italian wine qualification, will be held in New York City from 4 to 6 March 2024. Have you got what it takes to become the next Italian wine ambassador? Find out at vinitaly.com.
Hello, this is Ciro. I'm back for the fourth installment, and this time around we have a grape, or actually a couple of grapes by the name Grechetto. There is to say that these are actually two types of grapes unrelated to each other. We have the Grechetto di Orvieto and Grechetto di Todi, also known as Pignoletto in Emilia. Now, Grechetto di Orvieto has other synonyms by which is called, such as just more generically Grechetto, but also Grechetto Bianco, and lastly Grechetto Spoletino, and it's most commonly grown in Umbria and in parts of Lazio where abuts Umbria. It's very successful actually in Umbria, and it's considered to be a native grape of the Orvieto area, where it makes some very, very good Orvieto wines. Grechetto di Todi, as known in Umbria, or Pignoletto, as is also known and called in Emilia-Romagna, it's a name supposedly that originated from Pino Lieto that was given to the variety by already way back then in time by Pliny the Elder, the famous historian during Roman times, in its masterpiece known as Naturalis Historia. It is definitely more commonly planted in Emilia, specifically around the hills of Bologna, and produces wines that are labeled as Colli Bolognesi Pignoletto. As far as where both Grechettos are best located and where the best sites are, Grechetto di Orvieto needs, generally speaking, good altitude, obviously great exposures, and loves this tough rocks of volcanic origin, which are most commonly associated and found in the Orvieto area. It is an overall, resistant variety that likes cool climate, although sometimes might be challenged by peronospora. Can be an issue. It can be vinified both solo or blended, as it happens obviously in most cases, specifically in the Orvieto area, although more and more commonly you start finding expressions of monovarietal. As far as Grechetto di Todi instead, / Pignoletto, it's a variety that loves, again, the hills surround the city of Bologna with this basically marls, conglomerates, and layered sandstones, and soils which are area that actually have quite a bit of an amount of rain, so abundant rain. As far as the most common training system, that would be the Guyot when it comes to Grechetto di Todi, aka Pignoletto. And when you look at the wines in the glass, obviously because we're talking about two unrelated grape varieties and two obviously different wines, when it comes to Grechetto di Orvieto, the wines are for the most part dry, good acidity, good pleasant structure, and have aromas and flavors that can vary from apple to hazelnut in some cases, and also floral notes like acacia as well as chamomile. Versus Grechetto di Todi / Pignoletto tends to produce wines that may be a bit leaner, They have more sapid quality to it. Definitely tend to be more towards citrus fruits and herbal notes. But definitely both can be great food pairing, which we'll talk about. The uniqueness is that Grechetto di Orvieto wine specifically can be made in different styles, meaning we have the secco, the dry version that is probably most commonly found. Although throughout history, you would have in the area also wines that was abboccato with a slight sweetness to it, amabile, even more sweet, and lastly dolce, which is the full-on sweet versions. At the same time, Grechetto di Orvieto in the area of Orvieto can be found made by both Vendemmia Tardiva, which is late harvest, as well as Muffa Nobile, which basically means noble rot because of the fact that there is quite a bit of moisture in the air there, and you can have the noble rot. Grechetto di Todi / Pignoletto wines instead, they're still dry wines, but they can also be made in the form of frizzante with a little bit of bubbles, or full-on spumante, although that's probably the least common of the bunch. As far as my direct relationship with the Grechetto as a variety, probably it goes back to 13 years, because I worked for about a year for Arnaldo Caprai, obviously a very famous winery in Montefalco area in Umbria specifically. That's when I first tasted for the first time a Grechetto wine that they produce called Grecante in the Colli Martani area. And I remember falling immediately in love with that wine. A wine of a beautiful presence on the palate, great structure, plenty of flavor of like both herbal quality, apple, pear. Really, really enjoyable glass of wine. And from that moment on, whenever I could, I tasted a Grechetto. I've had the wines both in Italy, obviously, as I traveled there in some instances, but again, they are, I would say definitely somehow common here in the United States as well. And I've had also the opportunity to taste the Grechetto as a single varietal, as well as in some cases both from Emilia, obviously from Umbria, and sometimes from, in the case of Orvieto, as a blended wine, which is the most common case there. What I loved about Grechetto, or the Grechettos in this case, by doing some research, is the fact also the origin of the name. Again, because they both originate from the word Greco or Greek, because again, in the past, there was great fascinations with the ancient Greek world and all the effect that the ancient Greek world had in the Western world. And supposedly many grapes were named after such history, but today we do know, at least so far, that there is no genetic proof or relationship of such relationship, although the names continue to, have the moniker Grechetto, and so they're called. I would say, overall, definitely the wines are quite available. Maybe Umbrian appellations are definitely like Colli Martani, as I mentioned, definitely more common than Emilia. But also I've seen here and there some Colli Bolognese Pignoletto and things of that nature, which is nice and quite refreshing. As far as the producers that I would say benchmark, just to name a couple of names, in Orvieto, first and foremost, definitely Barberani and Mottura, they're two benchmark names. Again, in Umbria, I'm going to say Caprai, in specific Colli Martani. I worked for them. I respect them. They're wonderful. But at the same time, there's many people that are doing great things. And from the Colli Bolognese in Emilia specifically, when it comes to Pignoletto, Manaresi is probably a name worth of mention. Now, when it comes to food pairing, again, because we're talking about two different wines with, and again, potentially in Orvieto, you also have different styles made with grapes, maybe late harvest and whatnot. I think these are very gastronomic wines that can span across the table from the frizzante style of Pignoletto. They can be with the lighter to a certain degree, but like the simple salumi plate that you find in Emilia. As you go exponentially up on the ladder, of structure and intensity, you can move on also with the classic tortellini in brodo, which are very common in those areas. Or you can have a nice broth with the chicken in it, which starts, playing a little bit more with the wines of the area. But at the same time, I think the wines, because of where they come from, because of the inner part of Italy, where legumes become a very relevant part of the local diet. When you think about chickpeas, beans, lentils, I think any hearty pasta made with those type of preparations, I think the wines can do a great job. And lastly, obviously also with some great cheeses as well as desserts, when you look at late harvest or Muffa Nobile type of style wines. Definitely very gastronomic wines, definitely worth looking for, and very exciting category, although it's been around for a long time.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, cin cin.